not touch me.
Now, if you think that that was interspersed cuts, you weren't imagining it. It was a mashup created by film director Spike Lee, and it cuts from the Eric Garner incident to a clip from Lee's own film that we all probably have seen, Do the Right Thing, which was released back in 1989. Now, at the end of the film, we just saw one of the main characters who was choked to death in that film by an actor playing a New York police officer. Well, today, Lee spoke to our Dominic Carter about the film and why this rally is one that he personally didn't want to miss.
Spike Lee, you are here in Washington on this day. Why? And you're here with your daughter. But first, why? Why is this important to you?
I had to be here. When I read that Rev said we're marching today, I said, let's go. I called my daughter, who's a very fine photographer, Satchel. Look at that face. like I'm crazy. So she's gonna be documenting today with the still photographs. So we're here.
Why is it important for you to be here, Spike?
Because, you know, something is gone amiss in this country as far as it goes, the judicial system and the relationship between communities of color and police departments.
Young lady, obviously you're very proud to be here with your father, but what is today about for you?
I mean, I'm here to, you know, try to find justice for my brother. And not only my, you know, younger brother, who's 17, who could have been one of these men who was brutally murdered, but my brothers, you know, and this is really important, and I'm happy and proud to be here.
Spike Lee, but you're out here. I mean, let's be real. You're not a regular person. You know, a big movie director.
Well, I mean, I'm out here, so I think that you have people out here of many walks of life, professionals, people just getting by. So I also like to say this is also going to be very diverse. So it's not just black, it's not just African Americans up in arms. I think that all progressive Americans up in arms, white, brown, yellow, Asian, we're all up in arms, all young people protesting all across this country, all over the world. Because what is happening.
What is your message to America today?
Well, I'm going to use two words I've used in a lot of my films. Wake up. Wake up.
I want to get into the protests and where it goes from here, but Chief, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, both in the case of Eric Garner and what we know of the Gurley case in Brooklyn, were procedures followed? I mean, you know the difference between good policing and bad policing. You've seen the video in Staten Island. You know most of the facts surrounding the case in Brooklyn. Wasn't there negligence?
In the Garner case, looking at it, it's actually, I think, a little more of a complex case than the situation that took place in the Pink House developments. In both cases, I'm not so sure if you could pinpoint a specificity of what the police officer did or didn't do incorrectly. In the Garner situation, I certainly have some questions about that. I certainly was not our finest hour, and I certainly would have liked for it to be handled differently. I think that there was some supervisory accountability that needs to be looked at just to see whether or not that outcome could have been differently. In the shooting in the Pink House developments, there's no specific rules that we have on when a police officer should or should not have his weapon out. I'm going to make the assumption that this officer had his weapon out because he felt some type of a danger. I can't conceive what that particular danger would have been to not only have your gun out and have it pointed, but have your finger on the trigger, but not knowing the full totality of the circumstances, and the certain officer certainly has rights and due diligence. I haven't spoken with him. I don't know the crux of that investigation. There could be a plausible explanation for that, so I certainly do not want to indict that officer with me not knowing the full story. But I'm not so sure. It's a little bit difficult in those situations.
Fair enough. One go around about the protests. For the most part, overwhelmingly, they've been nonviolent, and I think from a guy who works in media, they've been effective in that they've captured the nation's attention. Just today, While thousands were in the nation's capital, you had tens of thousands marching towards Police Plaza in New York. But, Pastor, I've seen movements that fizzle out when the messengers and the message aren't always on the same page. Take the Occupy movement. They touched into something where 99% felt what they did, but then Zuccotti Park turned out to be a picture that people said, well, I don't want to relate to that. We've seen protests where people can't go to a Nets game because they're trying to run through the gauntlet there in front of the Barclays Center, or there's the Apple store or the Macy's. Is there a danger here that this is an important time to get across an important message, and maybe you're going to have a public that's willing to listen when they haven't in the past, but that could get hijacked if we're not careful how this is communicated?
There's an old mathematical theorem that says if several things are equal to one thing, then all those things are equal. And so in this protest and in the heart of this outrage and the hurt that you see from these parents, I think somewhere under all of this, people are trying to say we're equal, and we want to feel like we're being treated equally. But you can't say that we're equal and police officers aren't in terms of community. And you can't say that police officers are only equal to the legal justice system. At some point, community and what that means is under fire. Community and what that means is in question. The chief knows from 28 years, in the last 10 years, from a policing perspective, we've had intelligence-led policing, we've had community policing. At the end of the day, we're all trying to be together in relationship. And so relationship is under fire right now. Will this continue to beg the question of how we are in relationship with one another? I hope so. But in the interim, some decisions have to be made on how we're going to act toward one another.
You guys have seen protests that have worked in an eye. You were in the biased crimes unit before, so you've seen where the tempers run hot, and sometimes it's effective and sometimes it isn't. So far, as I want to stress, it's been overwhelmingly nonviolent and calm, and I think you've seen the cross-section of America, not just in New York and D.C., but in a lot of places in this country. Is it really important that stays that way? Because if it goes the other way and goes south, then all this messaging goes out the window?
Well, I think it will stay that way, and I think that it's one thing that we should realize is that people consent to be policed. Okay, it's a myth for anybody to believe anything other than that. Look at New York City. Any given day, 8 million people in the city, and that doesn't include the people who come in and out of the city from all over the world. You've got probably 15 million people, 40,000 police officers. You saw the people that are protesting today. If those people decided they wanted to storm and damage the roads and streets and kill people, that's what would happen. That's not in people's hearts. Okay, people are there basically saying they want to be respected, they want to be treated fairly, they respect the law. That's why you don't have any problems right now there. And 99% of the people, even in Ferguson, respected the law. You had a handful of people who looted. I think the chief brought up a great point. It can't be an all or none. Okay, so yes, when you see people looting, you see people committing crimes, the community wants you to address those people. And sometimes the police pull back and say, well, you know what, you're upset with us over this shooting, so we're not going to prevent that arson of your beauty salon or of the store. I think what's going to happen here is that the model for how we police and how we prosecute our criminal justice system altogether needs to be changed.
I got to, on that note, hit a break here. And when we come back, we'll hear from our panel on some of the personal levels. These guys got kids. And I'm curious, after some of these instances, how, if at all, there's different conversations. We'll talk about that. And also, Fox 1's Miles Miller met up with protesters in D.C. today. We'll hear from them as well.
Trayvon Martin's mother walks side by side with the Reverend Al Sharpton and Amadou Diallo's mother as thousands of demonstrators march down Pennsylvania Avenue demanding justice.
It's not okay to just feel that because you're in a place of power or authority that you have a laissez-faire attitude toward what happens in terms of consequences. There are repercussions that come when you feel that your power allows you to take actions that are against the law.
The peaceful march in the shadow of the Capitol was diverse, led by the families of those killed. their message unified.
Laws need to be put into place that holds these police officers accountable for their actions when they're in the wrong.
The protest was not without controversy. A group of young protesters from Ferguson, Missouri, took over the stage, voicing their opposition to Reverend Al Sharpton, who they view as a celebrity activist. The rally, part of a wave of demonstrations across the nation Saturday, seeking to elevate the conversation surrounding police violence.
And this stops today, like Eric Gardner said. He said 11 times, "I can't breathe." Everyone saw the tape, and for it to be a no indictment, we're tired of it. So Long Beach is here, and we're saying this stops today. This stops today. This stops today.
Protesters say the goal is to have congressional hearings about what they're calling police brutality across the country. In Washington, Miles Miller, FiOS 1 News.